This Board of Directors meeting is now called to order for the October meeting. Any public comment? Having heard none, we'll move on to the approval of minutes.
Can I make a comment about
Sure.
public comment?
Yes?
Maybe just a warning, you may be aware. Commander Claude and the American Legion and the flags,
Oh, yeah.
he is wearing me out.
What does he want?
Hang flags on the bridge.
So you're talking about Mr. Martin?
Claude?
Yeah,
Claude Martin. Great guy.
I have told him, come see you and sit down and engage you, and how can we
He knows
address-
better than most because he worked as a lineman. The size of the flag makes a difference because you've got to, everything on a bridge, of course, the state would get involved in that too because it's structurally designed. So depending on the size, you put those little flags up, I'm saying no problem. Want to put a bigger flag up on a sunny day, no wind, no problem. But the wind, when there's wind, there's a problem, and then there's liability because it's one of those things bend over, and we have pictures of them doing that. So I was Soldier of the Year in the Army. I got decorated, I got awards. I love our country, what it stands for. I am red, white, and blue. However, and I'm all about flags, and we lit this flag, which wasn't lit before. I'm all over that. But to endanger what it would be is a safety issue and a liability issue, depending on the size. And a lot of times they put those little flags with the, stringing and all of that. We're up for that. If you want to put those little ones in,
Yeah.
like some people do. But if you're talking about a decent sized flag, then you
So-
have to structurally design for that.
The American Legion, which I'm the vice commander of the American Legion, about a year ago, it was brought to the Legion's attention through the commander, Leon Jaquette, that one of our neighboring counties had flags on their veterans bridge. Whether they do or don't, what size they are, all those things, I don't know. I thought that had been asked and answered, quite frankly, because my understanding was that Leon had spoken with you, and we had already discussed, and it was represented at the American Legion meeting that there's a liability issue and
Size of the flag makes a difference.
TDOT issue, and so it sort of died.
TDOT issue.
Yeah,
That's a TDOT issue. Why is the utility involved in that?
because we were going to put.
Well,
in
of course, it's a
dark
utility
holes
pole.
or- Yeah.
What, are you talking about on this bridge?
Yes.
Yeah, but still, TDOT's gonna get involved in that. That's a driving hazard
Anyway.
potentially. Yeah, I hear you. Okay.
Claude is cranked up and is prepared to go to the governor and everybody else. But
He
I said,
needs
"Come
to
see
do
Greg.
that."
Come see Greg.
Again, is the American Legion willing to bond us? I would think we would still be liable for that, even if they did. It's all about safety and liability, those two issues, but safety first. If they want to do a structural study, and we asked them if they could give us the dimensions of the flag and the
This
weights,
bridge right here.
that we would be glad to see structurally what we could do, but
That's what I told him, come see you and bring on it.
Jay, yeah.
He's running around town with an old newspaper picture, claims it's that bridge that has flags on poles.
it very well might be. Of course, I don't have any knowledge of that, and I've been around almost as long as he has. The thing is, we used to have cars without car seats, and now you don't. So whatever was done a long time ago doesn't necessarily make it appropriate today. We know a lot about stresses and structure, and we have seen poles that because of the wind, they're over. But if the pole is designed to accommodate a certain 5-foot flag or something, and they take them up to hurricane level winds, if it's designed to withstand that, then it's all good to go. But these were not designed for that because they're not even structures like we have out here. Those are streetlight standards. They're called Cobras. They're streetlight standards designed for a bridge and nothing more than a street light on that. So,
Just giving you a heads up.
I'm ready.
That's still boiling.
We'll have a Legion meeting Monday, and I'll get a feel for what it is. Because I thought that issue was.
Why
Why don't you
not?
upgrade the pole?
Why not
Why don't
get,
you upgrade the pole?
come closer. Get an attachment.
Yes, boss.
If the state will approve it, you get an attachment just like you put on the side of your house. You see, a tube that it goes down, you bolt that onto the side of the bridge, and then you drop it in there.
You know, I was thinking maybe, and I don't know if it can happen or not, but, you know, the downtown Clinton, it's not a flag, but it's some sort of decorative,
Right?
and it doesn't flap in the wind, to my knowledge.
That,
You
yeah.
could have some smaller patriotic type of,
They're designed lightweight and for the wind to go through them. I mean, they're that
Yeah.
porous.
I'll see what,
Well, I suggested to them a nylon flag, like 3x5, they don't weigh anything. So anyway, that's why.
It's the stress of the wind when it's flapping. Then there is a pull doing that. It's how high is it up on the pole makes a difference. The higher up, the worse it is, you know? So,
Yeah.
man, a lot too. You'd think, how easy could that be? Nah, nothing easy. We had trouble getting planters on the lights on Market Street, you know, because of the weight, you know, potential weight of those things.
okay, well, thank you, Steve, that's good to know, that's on our radar. We'll move on to the approval of minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as written?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Now we move on to approval of vouchers. See the vouchers before you. You've had an opportunity to review them. Do I hear a motion to approve the vouchers as written?
So moved.
There's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Move on to the approval of the monthly reports for August. General Manager, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to point out to you, if you'll look on your fold-out sheet for revenue and expense summary, if you look at total operating revenue, and if you travel across to actual year-to-date and forecast year-to-date, and notice there's a $182,000 difference on a $15+ million forecast. I'd like to continue to point that out to you until it's no longer close, and then I'll fail to mention that. But I mean, it's a tremendous job that Dudley does, and if you're ever interested, he'll be happy to show you the algorithms that he goes through in order to do a very accurate budget. It's $9,300 in water and sewer, so I mean we're running very close, and that's really due to a lot of his skills. We have offered that at no cost to many utilities over time that have asked for it, and we just send them a copy of what we do. But we're doing very well in both departments, and Dudley, if you don't care to, if you have a few words on that, that would be great.
Okay. As Greg said, the electric department, while sales are a little less than I forecasted, the bulk of that, in fact, all of that and more is the industrials, not quite what I expected. The residential's doing pretty well. If you look at your, let me get this up here for you. Get my mouse across. If you look at your degree day comparisons, you know, July was a pretty normal month. Blue is this year, red is last year, and the yellow is a 10-year average. July was normal. August was up just a tad, but September is really up, as y'all know. I'm sure it was a very hot month, but what we're looking at is through August, and I anticipate next month to be a good month on sales. One other thing I want to point out is last 2 months ago, you all approved a long-term partnership agreement, 20-year contract that our manager has been working on for forever. And he's been on all these committees trying to get TVA to take the for sale sign off, as he always said, off of TVA. And he worked very hard on this B&T committee, if you remember. And I'm patting him on the back a little bit too, since he gave me some credit on that budget. But he worked very hard to get this 20-year agreement in place, and that was the timing of his award with the new CEO of TVA, Jeff Lash. Probably couldn't have been at a better time, in my opinion, because it sat him right by him at the dinner, and Greg had a tremendous amount of input on getting this long-term agreement in place, which got the 3.1% credit if everyone agreed to sign it. And y'all gave Greg the approval to sign that. And for 1 month of September, and that'll be reflected on next month's, we saved $115,000 for 1 month. And I give the credit to that man over there, and not just for this utility, but for all the utilities that agreed to sign that. And that, you'll see that next month, so our margin between our revenue and power cost should increase.
Can you go back to that real quick? I need to get that down.
I'll be glad to.
Thank you.
Okay. And again, if you're looking at this difference column here, so our sales were down, but our power cost was down. So that, our power cost being down more than our sales are down is a good thing. And then our expenses are a little bit under, and that's why we're 184,000 ahead of the forecast after 2 months. Water department, water sales were up. Sewer's kind of capped because it's based on your highest winter usage. So you can use more water in the sewer, but your bill is based on how much you used in the winter. We don't penalize you for watering your yards and things like that. So that's why you see a bigger increase in your water sales, and the sewer's kind of where I expected it to be. But our operating expenses are down about 40,000 from where I expected, and that's because we haven't had as much pump maintenance this year, and that puts us 54,000 ahead of the forecast after 2 months. Good for both departments. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, unless somebody has specific questions.
Any questions? Greg reminded me, we make a motion to approve this.
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a motion? So. A second. There's a motion, and a second. Any discussion?
Just want to give a shout out to Greg for his efforts with TVA.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate that.
Dudley stole my thunder on my other business, because that's part of what we've been talking about that.
Thanks, Dudley.
He knew he'd do it quicker than you could.
Truth, but we really we're into years on that, and it really took the new CEO to, because we clicked really well together. We had multiple meetings, just he and I, and then many hours on the phone conferencing with his staff to get something viable out, to get from what we agreed in principle on to flesh out what we could, what a signable document. And the ramifications of this go past these credits, because it provides the pathway for how we deal with the solar issue. And I have very strong plans on how we can market and handle what the future is holding for the solar across the valley, because now we're in chaos between us and TVA and the customer on how we can marry that together. And I have a plan, and my hope is to help make that happen, so we're not so far behind the wave, because the wave is already hitting us, even though we don't see it much on our system, but across the country, it's a big deal, and if we don't have a way to address that, then we will be at the mercy of third parties that care nothing about public power or safety associated with our linemen out. Because if you've got an energized source coming back over the line, then even when they're thinking it's dead, it's not, because it's picking up whatever the solar's doing. So we've got a real challenge ahead of us. This was a success. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second, and all in favor, say aye. Motion carries. Mr. General Manager, you'll take project status reports, please.
Yes, thank you, sir. If you look at electric, we've got 3 work orders that we're working, and we've got one, a new one, and this is the aerial cable on the Ridge Circle. That involves, and you approved this purchase order last month. So this upgrades what we're trying to do in general, and what really all 3 of these ongoing work orders are doing, and there's some substantial money involved, as you see. It's contributions towards where I want to continue to be on the quality of our system. And we are committed, and have been for many years, to move from out of behind the homes and the farms and get our lines on the street. That way the repair's easy, and it's also easy to see, and right-of-way never becomes an issue. And we find, as over the years, that it's taken Willow Ridge to replace ruts in a backfield for some of these folks. They're thinking it's really landscape now. So it becomes difficult. We have to hand carry the poles back in there in order to minimize damage, and it's just not like it used to be. As Mr. Martin is going to find out when he comes in, times have moved on, and by moving everything to the street, and we do that when we have to change the conductor out. So we have a plan, a 5-year plan that we look at, to where, and we have a process that we look at. How many outages do we have in a certain section over a period of time? That becomes, as those outages go up, that becomes a hot zone for us when we see whatever it is that caused that. If it's trees, if it is capacity issues, or whatever that is. So then we plan over time what conductor to replace. All of this, we're getting a larger capacity conductor. We're going from single phase to 3-phase in some areas, and we're building our ability to have a greater capacity for the areas that we serve. And when we do that, generally we're already talking about very old wood poles. I want to move them out to the street that puts us on state right-of-way, and since we changed the conductor, I don't want to put that conductor on old poles. So everything gets moved at once. That's essentially what this is doing. Also, because our ability with FLISR, which is fault location, identification, restoration of service, which we do automatically now, Steve, this conductor, as we put it up, we make it intelligent. We put devices on the lines to check. So we're checking voltage, checks what goes this way, what goes that way, and it gives our ability to open and close that so we can sectionalize and isolate and restore power, and the conductor has a sufficient capacity to where we can switch, and that's essentially what we have to do. Take load off and put load on, and we do that for a period of time until we fix the line, but we have to have conductor size with the capacity to handle a switch load. So by increasing the capacity of this conductor, we've increased our ability to do switching, which gives us the flexibility in order to get immediate service put back on, because we isolate these bad areas. All of these are sensitive to the FLISR system. All of these are about bringing conductor
from back behind in the farm areas and bring them up to the road state right away. And they're all on time and on budget. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have. If we want to go to the water, this is a work order that we track, and it's essentially done. We're monitoring. Everything's online, so we're monitoring all this. What we do after we start it up, we monitor it for a while, and then we have a punch list. I mean, in one of the wet wells there, the contractor has to repair a leveling rod, and the design engineer is doing the final punch list for the contractor, but essentially we're done. It's running well, with other than these small non-operational impacting issues. The contractor will fix those and we'll close this thing out. So that's a matter of really weeks, the way I see it. As soon as the design engineer gives us the final punch list and the contractor fixes those.
Any questions? Ready to move on to approval of purchase orders?
Yes, sir. This is a budgetary item. We had it in the budget for $75,000. This is a really a much needed device, but it is new. It is new to Cub. Well, while we've needed it and we have rented before in the past, this is going to be a great aid in our water and sewer department, and really electric too if we need it, because it addresses our ability to get underground. And these vacuum excavators, essentially they use air, they use water, and they've got a holding tank that takes everything bad up, including the rock, the gravel, the mud, and water and sewer. If it's wastewater, everything gets sucked out, and they can actually dig with this. So the hose coming off is about 8 inches in diameter. It'll do a perfect circle down, and it'll dig a trench for you, and it'll clean everything out of there, expose the pipe, so essentially you're not digging down with a backhoe where you could do damage, or if you're in a situation where there's a lot of mud or waste going on, you've got this down there and it pulls it right out. So this is a great, and we think we got it at a good price. You'll see that we're not going with the lowest bid because that didn't meet the spec, but I still want it on there for you, because what we spec'd was a diesel engine and this is a gas engine. So the lowest, which is the Ditch Witch, that HX30, that's got a diesel Kubota engine on it, and it's diesel. So 51,940 is the lowest bid that met spec. And we recommend board approval for that.
Do I hear a motion to approve the purchase of the RJV equipment? So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a quick question. Was this like do we anticipate as a capital expenditure for this year? Or?
Yes, sir. We had a $75,000 budget amount for this.
Thank you. Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Any other questions? Steve, I'm looking to you. You got any questions? You usually have a question.
Not on this.
Okay.
I've got a
You're good.
comment at the end of the meeting.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. All right. Moving along to approval of the CUB pension plan.
Mr. Chairman, we have oversight, as you know, on the review of the investments. And we had a meeting with USI, and I'm going to ask Dudley if you can talk about that in case I don't like what you say. I can be with everybody else and say, what?
Well, as most of you know, we have our pension plan, and USI, we meet with them once a quarter to discuss what we're invested in, and they recommend changes in how things are going. And of course, this year's been a really good year. If I'm going to take you to page 33, this shows right here where we were at the beginning of the quarter and where we are at the end of the quarter. We're 818,000 ahead of where we were at the start of the quarter. We deposited 420,000, but our total investment gains is 466,000 for that quarter. That's really good. If you look here on this page, and I'll blow it up for you some. Our planned performance year to date is 14.63%. And if you look at these benchmarks, we're ahead of the benchmarks. It's been a good year. You can go past this page if you want to really dig deep, and it shows you each investment we're in and how they've done. And as long as you see green, that's always a good thing. And there's nothing but green on there. So USI is not recommending any changes, and we're going to leave it as is. We're just getting ready to start our pension audit for the year, and once we have that complete, we'll bring that to you for approval, and that'll let you know more about where the pension plan is, and it's in really good shape. I don't want to scare you by saying that. It's in really good shape. Everything's good.
Dudley, does the individuals that do the audit, do they come and present the audit, or is that something that's presented by staff? I can't remember.
They'll come and present the audit. Brown, Jake, and McDaniel will come and present the audit. And I probably, even though I just got the electric and water audit, I won't have the pension audit for another month. So they'll probably be here in November. Well, it's already October. Probably here in December if I was guessing. I'll bring them all in, and then they'll just do them all three at once.
One time.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
got just
Any
two-
questions?
Yeah, 2, 3 questions. Do they kind of map out what our future commitment needs to be in terms of a target of where we've got to be
Yes,
for
that's
pension?
part of the,
Audit.
that is really a regulatory,
Right.
minimum requirement.
Okay.
And we've never, well, I know in the last 10 or 12 or 15 years, we've never paid minimum. We've always paid more than that.
Yeah, and
Minimum annual requirement.
Well, I'm thinking more of the, what the target.
Distributions.
Yeah, what we're gonna need in the future, because if we've got, I mean, I know on the healthcare side, we've got the boomers going through, and all of a sudden you got a bunch of guys deciding to want to retire.
That's all part of the formula because it takes that into consideration. They use
Yeah, there's an actuary, I'm sure it's doing. all this
yes,
stuff.
and it's dependent on the mortality table that you use
Right.
and what your interest assumption is,
Right.
and then what level is your plan at?
Sure. Do we have an idea, kind of fee for what they charge to administer? Ballpark? Will you just shoot me an email? I got a
will.
couple. Yeah, I got a couple of those that may just. I'm just
Right.
kind of curious.
Right.
And then the other is, how long have they been managing the pension fund?
This goes all the way back to.
So my next question.
Well, see, they change
Change
companies. I mean,
names.
depending on what.
Well, I understand it gets rolled up and bought out, and funny enough, I've had my insurance broker's been USI too. So the last
Right.
couple
Caroon
years,
and
'cause
Black, it was Caroon
They
and
bought
Black.
Wells somewhere along the line, and that's where mine rolled up to. But I mean, my insurance. But only question is, and I'm not. I have insurance guys that I've used historically that provide my GLPL coverage, and they've always done me great, and I never switched, but it never hurt me to bid it out to keep everybody honest, and probably as a public body, I'm not saying we should do that or shouldn't, but every once in a while, it's just good to bid stuff out every 3 or 4 years just to keep everybody in check.
Manager,
and-
if I could take this question. They came here last year, and I'd asked the same thing.
Okay.
Currently, this is what I do with Regions Bank. And I put this gentleman through what I felt like was a rigorous cross-examination. And I was very pleased with the answers that he gave. The fee is low for what they're doing.
Okay.
I feel like it was from an industry standpoint. Also, the asset allocation I felt was appropriate. The actuary is the one the audit is the one I'd rather, I'm interested in talking to
Yeah, that's
about. Are we really stressing with our Monte Carlo simulations, are we really stressing the pension plan to the appropriate standards? Worst case scenarios, if we had a massive.
But you have another downturn like you had in 08.
Right.
And, we all got corrected. We all got corrected a few years ago, so I think, but yeah, so it sounds like y'all already on it. So I'll look forward to hearing the audit, I guess, then. Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. Help me out, Dudley. Do we have a motion and a second?
No.
Okay. Do I hear a motion for approval?
Make a motion to approve.
So, do I hear a second? Second. Motion and second. Any discussion? Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now to other business. General Manager, I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had historic minutes, other business minutes that I went back and looked over the past years, and I was going to lead up to tell you about the good news that Dudley stole from me, but it would have given you a sense of how long I've been working on this and representing, and now I feel kind of foolish doing that, so I can just tell you I have no other business.
When did you start working on it, from my knowledge?
Well, on this particular run, it was August of 2017.
Okay, that's good.
And then I was asked by the TVPPA to represent, and I went across the valley trying to educate
Sure.
our 154 power distributors. I was asked by TVA to come in to address their board in March of this year, prior to Mr. Lash coming in to raise the concerns that I had on flexibility in the contract and the lack of equity should TVA be divested. And as a result of that, according to Jeff Lash, Jeff told me that those were his marching orders when he came in, when the board told him to get this squared away. And then we accomplished a tremendous amount in a very short period of time. I was very impressed.
But
with what
Greg's
we
been on committees working on long-term contracts
did.
since
Since '99,
1999.
right.
20 years?
Took him 20 years.
Well, really, it was and it was all TVA's problem too. Let me just be clear on that.
He's been fighting it a long time.
Great job. I'm proud we've got that done.
Big number.
Can you give us an update? About a month ago, down on Market Street on a Saturday morning, we had an issue, and I saw you down there.
Did you?
Yeah, I was real proud of you. You were the smoking point guy.
Barking out orders.
But you were down there. You were suited up. You were ready for battle.
Yeah,
And I was very proud to see you down there immediately, shortly after it had happened. So I just want to get an update.
Well, the whole thing was unfortunate. It was every break is, and the inconvenience that it provided some of our folks down there. We have some claims that we've transferred on to our insurance agent in order to help accommodate. I had them down there the following week, pressure washing that whole sidewalk all the way down. We felt very bad for that. It was a 6-inch, and that excavator would have done really well in that situation too, by the way.
That made me think of it.
Yeah, that's ongoing with the folks that were most damaged was the little gym that they have down there. They probably wouldn't like me calling it that, but whatever the name of that is. But I spoke with both of those on the day, and we're looking for the long-term gain, and the long-term gain, believe it or not, is a gift from our friends at the city, because the expectation is
that they're going to do a lot of creative work down there, widening the sidewalks. What we want to do is we want to replace that whole line, because that line was put in prior to even CUB owning that line. That goes back, really, a lot of that goes back to the 40s, very, very old, brittle. I watched it break as we were in the pit trying to dig around it. Different other sections broke off. So my question now is, and what the study is, do we have time to wait until this work is
So the
done?
grant comes in and
Or,
all that.
or do we have is there a slip lining alternative to that? Go in that line or pipe burst, you say? It'll be a little bit of a guessing game as to, we can take a leak that goes down and we can identify that and weigh out, what do we want to do? But this came up and that was a problem. So that's ongoing, and we're monitoring whether or not we can identify, and also the exercising of the valves came from this, and this machine here has an attachment that'll help us exercise the valves so we can get a full cutoff when we turn it off, because the one right up the street from that, as they close it off, it's a gate valve, and I think that there was debris under there, so we were able to slow the flow down, but we weren't able to stop the flow. So we essentially had to work, and clamp it in a
Wasn't
water
there a
flow.
car parked over it too?
No, that's the one you're thinking. The city helped us with that. That was up the road to 25W. That was our next hope, but there was a car parked over that, and we've asked the city, and they immediately squared that away to hatch that off for us. So no parking there. It didn't take up a space because it was a elongated space anyway. So there's a full parking space there, but just don't park over our valve, to get to it.
Well, great. I was proud to see the efforts, and I reported that to city council last month, but just wanted an update. So I appreciate you, General Manager. If there's no other business to come before us, I will go down the line and give everyone an opportunity to have any thoughts, questions.
Nope.
Steve?
I'll make you all aware of a service support that CUB does to the community. I hope it's one that most folks never have an opportunity to take advantage of. It's sort of related to what you're talking about down on Main Street or Market Street. I'm on trustees at our church, Methodist Church. And that means you need to be able to do about a dozen different kinds of repair work yourself, because nobody wants to go hire it, so they hand it to you to do. We had a faucet leaking in church 2 weeks ago. Yes. 2 weeks ago. Simple ball you pull out, replace, put springs in, replace it. I'd done that a dozen times. I went down there, I got to looking, and it had one cutoff valve underneath, which I thought was strange, but it turns out we only had cold water at that spot. And it was stuck. I got a wrench out and I turned it. I thought I had it shut off, and I reached up above to the sink and operated the valve, and nothing came out. So I thought, well, it's shut off. But I got up there and I took my wrench and I took the bonnet off that thing and got to the valve, pulled the valve off, and all hell broke loose. Water shot straight up over my head, against the wall, down the wall, and I sat there for a minute thinking, what do I do now? I put my hand on it, which diverted it into the sink for a second. And I thought, okay, I know where the shutoff valve is. I'll run outside and I'll cut it off. So I ran outside, didn't take my wrench, and I couldn't cut it off by hand. It was frozen. Ran up, got my wrench, came back down, still couldn't cut it off. It was still frozen. So I happened to think of CUB. I called CUB. I said, Greg, I need help. I ran back upstairs, took my shirt off, wrapped it around the valve, and held the water. And about 3 minutes later, the water cut off. I went back downstairs. Here's Greg at the door offering pumps, people, mops. I was so shook up, I didn't know what you offered, but I was so appreciative.
Wasn't dinner.
That CUB,
He wanted to come see you with your shirt off. That's what he wanted to see.
The minister finally made me put a shirt on. He wasn't gonna let me work in church without a shirt, but I was so appreciative that CUB
good.
supported the community, our church in particular, with the way they did. And Greg showing up at the door shows a lot.
Fantastic. Thank you, Steve. Thank you for sharing that. Final thoughts from me is I'm talking to the city about putting together something for the rollout on the policies. Roger and I are brainstorming the best way to do that, when to do that, so on and so forth, whether to bring in Rick and how to do all that. So the right people are all talking and getting around that. And then a board workshop, I'm going to, with everybody's schedules coming up, probably shoot for the beginning of the first quarter. So in January, when we get back from the holidays, that'll give me ample time to sort of think about what I want to cover. 30,000 feet up, I want to talk about Title 18. I want to talk about board responsibilities and board duties, and it not take a great deal of our time, but it would be beneficial, I think, for board members just to understand what is our duties, what is our role, and how do we exercise that. So,
Quick question on that.
Yes.
Are we technically a 501c3, or are we part of the government, or part of the county? I mean, city, excuse me.
We are part of the city.
Okay.
We can sue and be sued, but we're unique because the state gives us, by giving the city authority through the Electric Plant Act of 1935, where they separate as a municipal.
Right. Yeah, I was more wondering about, and just stuff I've had to go through recently. As a nonprofit, yeah, obviously you got tort liability protection as a municipality. As a nonprofit, you've also got additional. There's what's called the Nonprofit Act in the state of Tennessee that also gives you additional protection as a board member. And so I probably see.
No, you wouldn't have that here.
Well, if you're not a for-profit, so it's not technically a 50. I mean, it's not a. It's more of a nonprofit status, in which we would probably. I don't know. I need to look at it to see, but it's something. Hey, I never thought I'd ever have to worry about it in my career.
It's the
And I
E&O.
have to worry about it. So
You
it's
would
like,
be covered under the E&O on
yeah,
that.
Harrison.
the reason I say that, yeah, I understand that, and we were too. But the reason I say it is, we had a clause in our operating agreement in the bylaws of the 501c3 that said that at any point in time, if a board got sued, we had a provision that allowed the board to vote to protect themselves. It's something I never thought, but the state of Tennessee, the Tennessee Code Annotated, allows it. Just a weird little provision that I never thought I'd have to use in my life, and I never read it before until the last year, and I've read it quite a bit now. But it makes me something. I may just look at the bylaws sometime and see if there's something that if there's some reason why we would need to add something, or at least ask a question. So, it's more about trying to now, from my experience, protect
board
protect
members
everybody else too. So,
From
anyway,
liability.
yep.
If there's no other business to come before this board, I call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you.